Alright, what's cracking with y'all? Like, subscribe, comment, share, join the community. We try and do some big things over here. So, Earl Spence versus Terence Bud Crawford. We gotta talk about it. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. LDBC only, LDBC everywhere. It is a cold black affair. So, Earl Spence versus Bud. Possibly Terence Bud Crawford, possibly going to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, welterweight matchup as far as unifications and undisputed goes ever, like in the history of boxing. Why do I say that? I feel as though this is a fantasy matchup between Sugar Ray Leonard and Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Mayweather, and the literal matchup between Floyd Mayweather and Zab Judah, and also Winky Wright and Bernard Hopkins in the way that I see it, or the way that I've seen it, as well as even maybe a replay of Jermaine Taylor and Winky Wright. But more so, again, in the way I see it. So let's get to it. Analyzing this battle, I really see EJ winning, Earl Spence Jr. winning, as what's best for boxing. Now, that's my bias, and I'm starting with that personally to get that out of the way. Why? Because why is it best for boxing? Because I feel like if Terence Crawford wins, the facts show that he stepped up and fought Jeff Horn, and then immediately would have had a shot at undisputed, and essentially would have fought no actual champions besides Jeff Horn and Earl Spence to become undisputed, which is like the most expedited route ever. And then you have Earl Spence, on the other hand, who took a belt from everyone. He has a belt, like he has 3 belts. So he went to UK and took a belt from Kell Brook. He took a belt from Sean Porter. He took a belt from Jordanius Ugas. And if we're actually looking, Terence Crawford has more fights, yes, and technically, if we look at accolades, Terence Crawford has more or better accolades. But if we actually look at the resume, and shout out to BFTB, that's Best Fight the Best Boxing, he exposed something that I was kind of researching, and he was already on top of it, and that's Earl Spence. His resume is better than, like, if you look at his resume side by side with Terence Crawford's, his resume is better. You have, like, and you can't do the 6 degrees of separation thing. I understand that in boxing, but you have Felix Diaz, who lost to Lamont Peterson, and then fought Terence Crawford, lost, and lost right after that. And then you have Lamont Peterson, who beat Felix Diaz and then fought Earl Spence and lost, and he won after that, but then lost to Lipinets, if I'm not mistaken. So, and that's just a microcosm, like, of what's been done, like, aside of the fact that he fought Danny Garcia, who has a win over Terence Crawford in the amateurs. He beat Ugas, who beat Terence Crawford in the amateurs. There was some back and forth between Mikey Garcia and Terence Crawford for a while, and they were on the same side of the street, quote unquote, and he was never even able to make that happen if we actually look at that. So there's a number of people that Terence Crawford could have fought, names, actual names, like Adrian Broner, Ugas, Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Keith Thurman, none of which he's done. He fought Sean Porter right as he was about to retire, and foreshadowed that he was going to retire. He fought Kell Brook 3 years removed from his last welterweight fight, if not 4. So yeah, let's get back at breaking this down. So I do believe why this is the best welterweight matchup is because each guy can get knocked out in this fight, and that's being absolutely honest. And granted, I'm an EJ fan, I'm kind of biased in this, but I'm trying to look at it as objectively as I can, because I'm a boxing fan, so I kind of respect what Bud does well as well. So we'll talk about attributes that one has over the other, and also flaws. And I'd say, starting with the flaws, I say EJ, Errol Spence Jr., he's shown in the Danny Garcia fight and also in the Ugas fight that he has lapse of focus moments where he'll have an open high guard while he's slipping, and that's instead of slipping with your hands closed, and he typically does. So he's protected even if the punch lands while he's slipping, it lands on the guard. But when he slipped while he was open against Ugas and Danny in the later rounds and lost his mouthpiece, it was like his brain zapped, like he paused for a minute, and he completely was defenseless. And he, I would say, has a very, very good defense. So his lapse of focus on open, high guard slipping. And then on Terence Crawford's side, I would say something similar is he has a hands-down style, which is very old school, which is why I think a lot of old school fighters kind of lean towards him, because he has a very B-Hop-esque style. I wouldn't say Mayweather, I would say more so B-Hop, because he doesn't effectively use the shoulder roll defensively. He uses it more offensively and aggressively. So his hands-down aggression, I would say, is his equal flaw. Both of those flaws can get them both knocked out. Terence Crawford shown in his aggression against Mean Machine with his hands-down approach of coming forward. Mean Machine dropped him. There was no question about that. And then though it wasn't counted, but definitely dropped him. And then also he was getting caught a lot by Felix Diaz when he just would come forward and on him with overhand right, well, not overhand rights, but right hooks and left overhands. So those are two flaws on both sides' parts. Now I will talk about the opposite. I will talk about their skills. What behooves them is, I would say, what Terence Crawford does better than Errol Spence is, I think he counters better, more effectively. I would say he's faster than Errol Spence, at least with his hands at this point. I did believe he had faster feet. I do believe he'll work on that, because I won't compare them at their worst, I'll compare them at their best. But his foot speed kind of slowed down like Canelo's. So yeah, I would say his countering ability, his speed, and he's probably right now the better finisher of the two. Now, so that's countering, speed, and finishing. Errol Spence, I would say he's actually better technically at all ranges than Terence Crawford. I would say at distance, where you can essentially only land the jab and cross and maybe a lunging check hook. He's a lot more fundamentally sound. If you go to mid-range, he's more disciplined and safer. That's where Bud gets caught a lot more than EJ is at mid-range. And then the inside, I don't even need to speak on that. Like, he's probably one of the best inside fighters we've seen since Mike McCallum, maybe even since Mike Tyson. No, I would say since Mike McCallum, because that's, yeah. So then I would also say Errol Spence, his defense is better than Terence Crawford. Now, people would probably disagree with me here, but if you know me, you know I'm a fan of the catch and shoot, which is catch, parry, block, as opposed to all the slipping, rolling, and pulling, because you're out of position to punch, A, and you're off balance. B, you don't always slip the punch successfully. So if I don't catch the punch and I have a tight guard, I'm still going to be able to block it, because my hand is in place to catch the shot, regardless of if my hand is open to catch it or is closed just to block my face. You slipping with your hands down, on the other hand, it leaves either miss or hit. I left out the Sean Porter was catching him a lot because he had his hands down, Terence Crawford, and Sean Porter was catching Errol a lot because of volume. Now, but yeah, I would still say his defense, and then also his durability. Now, I would say Terence Crawford, it's Chet. Now, if you actually look at the history of them promoting this fight, which it was built on Trill Boxing Talk, shout out to Black Fight Fan, but Terence Crawford has not been more aggressive with the call out of Errol Spence since he's had the accident. Before he's had the accident, it was, you guys know who I want to fight, and I want the big names, Bob, make it happen, Bob, make it happen. And then you'll have Max Kellerman like Errol Spence, and people just throwing his name in there, but he would barely say the name. And it's like, now that the fight is, there's no other fight but that fight, Terence Crawford is back to being kind of tentative about it. I don't have an update. I'll let you guys know maybe. But there's no more, hey, where's Errol, and you're not in the sea, but that's beside the point. I'm sorry, guys. So with these, their flaws, their strengths, what's best for boxing in my eyes, maybe what's best for boxing in your eyes may be different. Missed opportunity. All of that said, I still would say the former undisputed champion at a weight class below, fighting the man who's seeking to become undisputed at the weight class above, makes for not only an exciting fight, but an historical event. So, like, it kind of gives me chills thinking about the possibilities. Like, so it could go the distance, and it could be a very controversial result because it goes the distance, and where the fight takes place, and also how it played out. Was it a dirty fight? Did crazy ruling happen? Like, if it happens in New York, it's possible that there are stoppages to protect the fighter, and people could act like it's to protect Terence Crawford or to protect Errol Spence. Now, if it happens in Las Vegas, it seems like it could be neutral, but Las Vegas has a history of like tragic scorecards. They try to push it on Texas, but it's all Las Vegas, like, if we're being honest. So yeah, though it can go to the distance, it can end in a stoppage. I see it not being a whitewash. I think it's not 50-50. I do believe it's closer to 50-50 than everyone thinks, but I do believe it's 45 in favor of Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence Jr. will box/bulldoze Terence Crawford, and he will show him that the class of fighters, him fighting the people in their prime and at their best, has prepared him better than the Bob Arum diet, or the Top Rank diet, or at least the ESPN victim track record that we've seen. So yes, I have Errol Spence Jr. winning this fight. I would say by stoppage, and my plan B is on points as well. But the one thing is he can't have the lapse of focus where he leaves himself wide open and then kind of forgets he's in the middle of a fight, you know. That said, again, like, subscribe, share, join the community. We're going to do something major over here very soon, guys. It was a cool black affair. Till next time, deuces.